mixed experience with that, where there's some people who will point to specific verses and say, this says you cannot be gay, and then others who emphasize the culture of love that Jesus creates. And so I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Thank you. What's your name?
Laura.
Laura asked about how my religion and my father's religion and my upbringing affects the way that I talk and the way that we have conversations, particularly with people who disagree. And there are people who disagree on many different levels. I am a born-again Christian today, right here, right now. I'm a born-again Christian in the truest sense of the term. When I think about Jesus Christ and what he did when he was on earth, we have to remember that the laws, the legislative policies, the powers that be, and the religious traditionalists, the religious scholars, they weren't all too happy with him, as far as what I remember. He preached certain things and was called a radical, a troublemaker, an agitator. He started a political movement. He talked about the Roman Empire and how they were occupying their people. And they all wanted to come in. People were saying, well, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. People that said, well, Jesus' own people crucified him. So as I remember, his government didn't treat him too well either. When I talk about what Jesus is to me as a Christian troublemaker, as a Christian supporter of civil rights and civil disobedience to attain that, I think about three things that we use sometimes in our Bible verses and in our lectures and our sermons. About turning the other cheek, which sometimes people talk about long patience and suffering, and they say if you keep getting beat, then just keep on getting beat. Some people even said that verse is for women who get battered and just continue to be a battered wife. The way that some people turn verses around. I think about going the extra mile. And some people talk about that in endurance. And then I hear about giving your cloak as well. Some people talk about that in terms of generosity. Okay, the first one, turn the other cheek. We have to remember that when Jesus was saying that, think about the time when he said it. He said, when somebody hits you on the left, you turn to the right, yeah? To turn the other cheek. Yeah? What you're looking at is somebody who uses the backhand, who's a superior. He says, I'm going to hit you this way because you acted up. And if you're that other person who was hit, you turn the other cheek. Not so that he can keep on hitting you. He said turn it so that he cannot hit you in that level of superiority. Turn it so that he must be an aggressor. So that he must hit you with the fist. Find the way to make the aggressor more visibly the aggressor. That was the lesson. When you look at it in terms of what people were saying, going the extra mile, you have to remember that slaves of the Roman soldiers would carry knapsacks for a mile. And if they carried for any more than that, then the soldier would get punished. So he's telling slaves not to endure and keep on enduring and keep on keeping on. He was telling them, use that ability to keep on keeping on. To get your soldier in trouble. He said, get your overlord in trouble. Get the oppressor in trouble. Use those rules against them. There's the second rule of civil disobedience. And the third rule of civil disobedience, we hear if a man wants to get your jacket, take your clothes from you, then give him your cloak as well. And many people say that, well, that just means be generous. Be so generous. Keep on giving. Keep on giving. Exegetic, when you talk about what it meant at that time, Jesus wasn't talking about a man. He was talking about the man. He was talking about when you go to court and somebody tries to sue your pants off of you. It says when your creditor, who's rich and famous and all of this, is trying to take all the things that you own so that you are naked, then go in court and strip naked. He said, give him your cloak as well. In court, and prance out naked and talk to other people, say, well, this is why I'm naked, and this person is trying to take my clothes, and this is an unjust system. Using the media, using the attention that it gets, dramatizing the situation. So you have three principles of civil disobedience. And in my ways, I have found that some people like to engage in discussions and say, well, that was not relevant because it was written at this time, and this is it, and they also don't like shellfish, and Leviticus says that is an abomination, and people should be wearing polyester in the church, and if they do it is an abomination, so women need to just take off their polyester, they'll be all naked in the church. So everybody's saying all these things like, oh, this is the way you need to analyze, this is the way you need to analyze. Well, I think when you look at what Jesus was and what Jesus is to me, he is a model of civil disobedience, of real civil disobedience. Not just making a scene to make a scene, but finding that wedge and realizing, making those people realize that you can never cloak your arguments in niceness, in politeness. Well, don't call me a bigot. I'm not a bigot. Don't compare yourself to the civil rights movement. You're not a civil rights movement. But they say all these things and cloaking it so politically, so Christianly, and saying like, oh, I just wanted to have my religion. No, you find ways to wedge that in there and you tell them, because I love you, that's why I'm willing to tell you this and do this and confront you with this. There are three kinds of love. The sexual love, the intimacy, you have the friendship love, the love you, I love you, but not like that kind of love, right? And you have the unconditional love. And when you talk about civil disobedience, it does have to be done in those certain ways. Unconditional love. When we say that you should love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, we're not saying that you should love the homophobe. You're not saying that you should want to have sex with the homophobic man, right? We're not saying that you should all be best friends and give them Valentine's Day cards, right? We're not saying that. We're saying that you have to love them enough to tell it to their face that you are wrong to have this. And I love you so much, and I trust you so much that I'm telling you that you are wrong, and you can be on the right side of history, and you can be on the right side of what God is really saying. You can understand other people. You can love your neighbor yourself. I trust you that much, even though I don't like you, even though I don't like what you're saying, I love you unconditionally. And that is true unconditional love. So that's just my philosophies. I don't have a lot of Bible verses to go throw at people. I generally tend not to want to get involved in those kinds of discussions. But try to understand, I mean, not just in your particular Christian religions or particular Buddhist traditions or humanist theologies or ideologies, but in everything that you read, everything that you look at, in your history books, in all of that, really analyze what was meant and what is to be gained by all of that. And then you are doing, and it's not easy. It's not an easy thing. But you have to do that, and then that, you become a loving person.
The questions come up, what if people that were discharged honorably under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, if they want to re-enlist, what position would they have? I just wanted to know what your opinion was on, like, say someone was discharged and now they want to go back into the Army, if they should have their former rank or if they have to start at the bottom.
Thank you. What's your name?
My name's Allie.
Allie, thank you for that question. She asked about rank and reinstatement. Will you be able to, if you got kicked out under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, would you be able to come on back at that same rank? And the answer is, I don't know. That hasn't been figured out yet. President Obama and the Department of Defense, they have to decide that. So even if Congress repeals through their legal legislative process, even if the Senate does all of this vote, that's not included. That's still up to the President to decide. The President has to decide a lot of things, and that's why I call on him to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, not only through an executive order right now, and although that won't get rid of the statute, I understand that, but he also has to institute a non-discrimination policy, and he has to talk about reinstatement, he has to talk about housing and all that stuff, and he can't wait for this study. This study is not going to be conclusive of any means. They're going to be like, oh, we don't know this and this. Of course you don't know. You don't know because there's no leadership telling you this is the way it's going to be done. So when the President can say, this is the way that we're going to reinstate people, this is the way that if we go into reparations, if we pay people back pay or whatever, or if we figure out the promotions or whatever, then we'll allow you. There are people who got kicked out under other than honorable conditions, or people who got dishonorable discharges before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They threatened me with an other than honorable discharge. There are a couple of discharges that you can get. Honorable, general, or other than honorable. With the other than honorable discharge, you lose so many of your benefits. I'm 50% disabled from the Iraq War and from my time in service. Chronic lung issues, fractures, etc. So I go to Veterans Affairs Hospital. I can get free treatment on all of those service-connected injuries and conditions. If you had an other than honorable discharge, which many people have, that all goes into this whack mode. You don't know, are you going to be able to go to a veterans hospital? Will you be able to take advantage of your Montgomery GI, your scholarship, your education benefits? Will you be able to get your home loans and things? All of that goes into limbo if you get an other than honorable discharge. And of course, we have to note that women and racial minorities but more particularly women, of all orientations, straight women and lesbians, have been discharged with proportionally worse discharges, as in general discharges or other than honorable discharges. So we find that Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the process of kicking people out is another instrument to perpetrate racism and perpetrate sexism. So it's up to the president to realize all of this and see that there is something that he has to do. And so we'll be waiting for an answer from President Obama on that. Do we have any more questions?